Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another weekly episode of Everything Vaguely Paranormal. My name is Blake Smith, and with me, as always, are my partners in the paranormal, Miss Shelley Pruitt and Mr. Ryan Roberts. How you guys doing?
Rolling right along.
Fantastic.
Can't complain.
Ready to hear about some demonic stuff.
Oh, we got a fun one tonight. Ugh. It's not going to be what you think. I'm just going to put that out there right now. So you better get your popcorn ready, probably, and get the beverage settled in.
It's too hot to do anything else. Go ahead, get you a snack, grab your pizza that you took out of the oven, and your soda pop or your beer or whatever it is. Get ready. This one's a good one.
Do like me, get you a big, cool, refreshing glass of tea. Sit back and listen.
Ryan, you are so weird. I love you.
Ryan, you're unbelievably weird. You're unbelievably weird, but that's okay. That's why you're a part of our team. That's why we love you.
That's right. You fit right in, buddy.
Well, let me get a drink of my wonderful not sweet tea. Tonight, we are going to be talking about a very interesting case. We have talked quite a few times about demonic hauntings on this podcast, but it seems like in recent years that there has been a very overwhelming number of new cases coming forward. Some of them I get drawn into, and some of them, frankly, I just roll my eyes at because, I mean, you could just tell how CGI'd. I'm just going to go with CGI.
It's been screwed with.
It's been messed with.
Video manipulation. There you go.
Yeah, no shit. Which does nothing.
Smart word.
Which does nothing but, obviously hurt the paranormal field. But anyways, I digress on that. So tonight, what we're going to talk about took place back in 2011 in the illustrious town of Gary, Indiana. If y'all didn't know, illustrious town of Gary, Indiana, once the murder capital of the United States. And it is the Ammons Family haunting, or it's more popularly known as the Demon House. It's also lesser known as the 200 Demons House, but we'll get into that later on. So,
yeah, I knew about the Demon House. I didn't know the 200 Demon House. That's a big steep number.
200 Demons House. Yes, we're going to get into that story and how they get that lovely title. So,
all right.
One thing we
mentioned from
Shelley's gonna love it. So one thing we mentioned on the show before in haunting cases is that we feel that when there's certain individuals involved, your police officers, your pilots, detectives, stuff like that, it tends to lend a little bit more credibility to the case. Well, this is definitely one of those. However, again, not as all as it seems. So keep that in mind as we go through this whole freaking episode. And on top of this, there are almost 800 pages. I'm telling you, I'll move my microphone. So if I keep hitting it, I apologize. On top of this, there are almost 800 pages of local official government reports on the strange occurrences in the home, which was attained by the Indianapolis Star, who then reported on it. So, although the story wasn't publicized until January 2014, the origins of it start in November 2011, like previously mentioned, when LaToya Ammons and her mother, Rosa Campbell, and LaToya's 3 children, ages 7, 9, and 12, began to experience phenomena, but what they believed to be a malevolent entity in their home. And this was a nationwide interest story, too, even gaining the interest of some very big names in the field. So in November 2011, LaToya Ammons moved into their white 1-story rental home located at 3860 Carolina Street. Now, this house was built in 1926, and it's nothing amazing that would stick out if you were to drive by it. Small, quaint, with an enclosed porch on the front in an impoverished neighborhood in Gary, Indiana. However, according to rumors, the house had a very dark secret. Allegedly, 5 individuals had been murdered in this house, though there is nothing to corroborate this. And I did a very quick search on Find a Grave and newspapers.com, and it's not quick search at fucking all. It took forever. And I was not able to find any documentation.
So off the bat, we've got a lot of lore and legend going into this whole situation.
Yes, we do, right off the bat. So the question just still remains, what the hell fucking happened in this house? Well, the first instance that the Ammons family felt something was going on was days after they moved in December 2011. The enclosed porch on the front of the house was claimed by swarms of black flies. Despite the very cold winter in Gary, Indiana in December 2011, there they were. Thinking nothing of it, the Ammons family began killing the flies as fast as they appeared. But despite how many they killed, and according to the story, it was swarms of them, there always seemed to be the replacement flies that returned shortly thereafter. So I'm going to going to deviate from the story real quick. Go ahead, Ryan.
Was this part of the story documented too? Or was this just what the Ammons family said?
This is claims at this point. Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah. So I find it interesting that a lot of the demonic cases that we hear about start with, swarms of flies. And that's kind of usually my cue when it's the first thing I hear about to kind of raise my eyebrows a little bit. It's the first experience somebody has. We know, because we covered it, where that comes from, that Amityville Horror House, It wasn't really until that movie premiere, whenever the, priest gets attacked by the swarm of flies, that all of a sudden we're starting to see this narrative.
Suddenly everybody says, oh, it's a demon. I got a swarm of flies. Maybe a big ass horsefly just got in and laid eggs in your house and you didn't kill it quick enough.
Maybe it did. True. You never know. But the connection is still in demonology. You do have Beelzebub, who's the Lord of Flies. He's definitely one of the 7, deadly demons or princes of hell, or whatever the fuck you want to give him as a title. Now, that's not to say that there isn't a connection of insects or something of the matter being part of
infestation,
demonic infestations. But I still tend to remain skeptical if that's the first experience that a family is having. But I digress on that. Well, after the flies began, the first signs of paranormal experiences that the family started to show. Weeks had passed as attempts were made to properly fumigate the house from the flies, and LaToya and her mother, Rosa, would begin to hear what they believed to be footsteps. And in a recurring event that typically took place after midnight, both the women would hear footsteps coming up from the basement and then the slow creaking of the door opening that separated the basement from the kitchen. Now, this is where credit is due, because both of these women would get up at, whatever, after ass crack of dawn, middle of night, whatever, and go and check the sounds. Not me. My ass is just going to go back to sleep. But each time that they did, they discovered that no one was there or no source for the noise. And LaToya even locked the door to the basement, but just like clockwork, once the midnight hour struck, as it was put in several sources, the clumpy footsteps climbed the basement stairs and the door would creak. So
my first thought with that, if it was haunted, that was probably residual. So it doesn't matter if you lock the door or whatever, and there's no threat there. It's just residual, and that's all you're hearing.
Yeah. Well, that's my next point that I was going to make. That's the question. Are we at intelligent or are we at residual? In my opinion, we're at residual at this point, because that's exactly what residual is. It's the auditory or visual anomalies that are left behind energy that can then replay if the setting is right and all that kind of stuff.
True, but the only thing that makes me question that is the physical manipulation of the door. If the door is locked and it's no matter how many times she locks it and it unlocks and opens itself.
Wait, did you ever say that it actually opened itself? They heard the creaking of the door. Did the door actually open? Because you can hear a creak of a door, as we've seen, and all doors are closed.
It did say in many sources that the door creaked open.
Okay. So that still could be residual, though. On its path and has to get to its path.
Possibly,
but I don't know. Don't ask me.
But the footsteps were allegedly corroborated by other people. Some reports say that the families before and after heard them, and some say that other Ammons family members, besides the ones that lived in the house, also heard them.
So were there children in the house?
Yes, there were.
So somebody could have been sneaking in. I stayed out too late, Mama. Sorry. I'm trying to get in so I don't get my butt whooped.
True. Until you get to the next instance, though, because one night, Rosa, the grandmother, she felt a strange presence that awoke her, and from her bed, she peered out of the doorway, saw a very large black shadowy figure pacing back and forth in the living room. Now, again, she got out of bed, not without a gun for me, and she entered the living room and found giant, wet, and muddy footprints on the wooden floor. Supposedly, she wasn't the only one who has seen this large shadowy figure. The children had also reported seeing a shadow man moving between the bedrooms, and the boot prints were found throughout the home as well, not just in the living room. And Rosa also had claimed to have been choked by an unseen force as well during this time of experiencing this large black shadowy man.
And this is Granny.
This is grandmother. The Granny's getting choked, yes. Well, shortly after that happened, the family began to experience what they thought were dogs barking. The only thing was they didn't own dogs, but there was barking coming from inside the house. Now, this claim actually would later be corroborated by an investigator who did hear what he described as dogs barking beneath the floorboards, which, depending on what kind of house it is, I wasn't ever able to find if it was pier and beam or slab, but But if it's pier and beam, I mean, a dog could get under.
I was gonna say, I believe it is a pier and beam house.
Yeah.
I believe it is.
Yeah.
Just based on
the time that,
I've seen of it.
Well, that and the time that it was built and all that kind of stuff. So yeah,
Most
absolutely.
likely, right?
Yeah. So, but before now, that's all before the hot and heavy kind of stuff. So before we get into the hot and heavy kind of stuff, I want to lay some things out about the Ammons family in general, so that we can kind of look at both sides. Skeptical believer of this. Latoya Ammons was reported to have been highly religious, a highly religious Catholic individual. I point that out because Catholicism and Catholic teachings and their beliefs, they're primed to believe in evil entities and demons, demonic, and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, of course, this is going to make her supernatural outcome, if you will, a little bit higher. However, the activity that was taking place up to now have surrounded demonic cases for thousands of years, if you want to go that far back.
Mm-hmm.
You have this slow progression of escalation.
Right.
So if you waved off this notion of a demon house already, I think that you definitely need to pay attention and stay with me, because I think that this case does deserve a very serious investigation on it. So, and secondly, it needs to be said that the house, that in the house, you also have a young girl who is on the verge of puberty. She's prepubescent at this point. So, and we have seen this time and time again, where activity tends to ramp up if there's something in the home when you do have a female who is of that prepubescent time period.
Especially poltergeist activity.
Poltergeist activity. And lastly, while all this is happening, the family suffers a devastating loss of a loved one, not in the home. And so there's this massive amount of grieving and turmoil within this situation as well that's taking place.
You're almost creating a perfect storm here.
Because you have a massive release of energy when it comes to the grieving process.
And a highly religious family and a child that's going through puberty.
Yeah.
You've
got quite a lot going on inside this house. And then also in the basement, there was a dirt floor to be discovered underneath the stairs, but that really wasn't enough for them to sway Latoya and Rosa putting the washer and dryer down there near that dirt floor. No, I mean, I don't like basements. Shelly, I'll just send you down there.
I'll go.
I'm going to tell you what, I got something coming up the stairs every night and leaving muddy, wet footprints everywhere. I'll be damned if I'm going to the basement. I'm going to the laundromat.
I'm not washing my damn dirty undies in the damn basement where the footsteps come up the stairs. I'm going to tell you what, if I'm down there, if I'm down there washing my dirty undies, the ones I'm wearing might be dirty by the time I get through washing them. So for real. So, well, as time went on into 2012, tensions in the house began to grow. Fighting and very destructive behavior began to occur between the children, and there wasn't really a room in the house that was truly free of the constant noises of said children. But the family went on with their life, not making a fuss or anything, just living as a normal. And it wasn't until March of 2012 that things took a very dark turn. And on March 12th of 2012, around 2 a.m., family and friends were gathered at the house for the mourning of the loss of the loved one that we previously mentioned. And a friend of the 12-year-old daughter was staying the night as well when she awoke suddenly and screamed. And Latoya came into the bedroom to check on the kids and saw her 12-year-old unconscious and levitating off the bed. Now she started to alert the others in the house. They all corroborated, said that they had also witnessed a spectacle, and they gathered around the child and began to pray over her. And they continued to pray until eventually her daughter returned to the bed. And when her daughter later awoke, she had no memory of the incident whatsoever.
Okay, I see somebody floating. My first instinct is not to pray, is to grab them and put them back on the bed. Get over here. Get up, get out of that air. Get over here back on your bed where you belong. I no, my first thought is grab them, catch them. What if they suddenly fall,
I mean, I think I'd be. I think I'd open the door and see that and be like, "Oh shit!" I don't know what I do. I'm sorry, I'm a paranormal investigator, but I don't know. I'd have to take a breath for a minute.
I would too, but the investigator me be like, "Where is the camera? Let's go find a camera. Let's see if we can document this."
No shit. I would be like the friend, because the friend who had slept over it never came back to the house.
No,
I deuced the fuck out after that. So,
can I come back tomorrow night?
Of course you would. You'd sleep in the basement the following night. We know you, Shelly.
She's like, this is the most extreme game of stiff as a feather, light as a board I have ever played. What's going on?
Stiff as a feather, light as a board.
You win.
Yeah.
You mean light as a feather?
You know what I'm
so
getting
poor.
Stiff as a feather.
Stiff as a feather. I've never heard that one, Ryan. That's great.
Reverse that.
Well, shortly after this is when the boys, who are aged 9 and 7, now along with their sister, became the next targets of the activity. The boys' eyes would become bloodshot for absolutely no reason. One of the sons was thrown out of a room by an unknown and unseen force that pulled on his limbs and his genitals. And the youngest would lock himself in his closet to talk to invisible entities or a boy that no one had actually ever seen.
Ooh, now see, that becomes a problem for me.
Yeah. Well, doors would slam, the children would speak in tongues while donning sinister smirks, and LaToya's daughter would talk about being choked by an unseen force.
So do we have 3 or 4 kids in the house? I'm trying to figure this out.
You have 3.
3 kids.
You have a daughter and 2. You have a daughter and 2 sons, 12, 9, and 7.
Okay.
And LaToya's daughter also said that her head also was smashed against the headboard, which did require stitches. Now,
holy shit!
I found another source to that story that says that the headboard fell, but fell with force on top of her daughter's head. So, is it changing the details of the story to, cover an accident that may look bad in medical staff eyes, or, I don't know. Could go either way for me, kind of, so to speak. So, and that's all interesting to me because in all the demonic cases that we know and have studied, typically there's only one person being afflicted by the demonic entity or multiple demons. Like, let's face it, usually these very high profile cases of possessions, they're not centered around one demon, and multiple people. It's typically a set or legion of demons that have to be exorcised out. That's behind the possession and the hauntings in these cases. So,
and it's usually only one person in the home being affected. It's like like picking off who they think they can get. And
well, and they usually there's an agenda to it. There's a goal, they have a set of rules or duties to kind of follow throughout all this. So, but it's rarely like one demonic entity. So, well, there had allegedly been attempts made to reach out to local churches, but according to the sources that I was reading, the churches refused to come and visit the house. Of course, we have dealt with that ourselves as well. So there's nothing about this case that I'm covering so far that we haven't dealt. Well, we haven't really dealt with a demonic case. I can't say that, but that we haven't dealt with in paranormal activity standard or haven't discussed in the level of demonic cases. So we've had people when we mentioned go to their priest, we've actually had people who have called us for residential cases be like, I have, and they won't come out.
They won't come out.
Yeah. But that kind of lends down to that is because the church is going to refuse to be caught up into anything that might resemble or could be a hoax. They don't want to be caught up in that. So they're very, very, questionable whenever it comes. So
and there's a massive set of protocols that they have to go through before they can even touch anything.
Very much so.
Right. Yeah.
But that kind of leads you into the mindset of the family as well, because, once all of LaToya's children began to exhibit these signs of possession with the refusal of the churches, she then decided to reach out to 2 unnamed clairvoyants. And I'm not going to say that's the right move. I'm not going to say that's the wrong move. However, these 2 clairvoyants come into the home, begin to receive messages from the other side. And when all is said and done, these clairvoyants tell LaToya and her mother that the house is possessed by over 200 demons.
I don't know about all that.
Well, go ahead, Red.
It's just a random number. I don't know.
I never found the exact number. What they said, all they said was over 200.
Okay.
That's all that the sources say. Over 200 demons is what these 2 clairvoyants had told her.
Well, so they called Miss Cleo to come in.
Did they talk to all 200? That's my first question. And second of all, if something tells you that, why are you going to trust a demon? I'm
not going to sit there and listen to those interview tapes. I mean, shit, that'd be
my first question. Number one, why are you trusting something you think is demonic? It's going to lie to you.
You'd be like, Demon 193, you are up now serving.
Okay, come on in. Okay, so tell me, what the hell's wrong with you tonight? What's pissing you off? How can I make you leave? Yeah.
I mean, what did I just want to know if they tally marked as they went through the rooms. Like, okay, right. 7 in this one. I got 7 in the bathroom.
22 in the basement. I've checked twice. Yeah, 22. Mm-hmm. Again, if they got this number somewhere, where did they get it from? And if they're claiming they're speaking to something that is demonic, why are you trusting something that's demonic?
Very true.
So, okay, go ahead.
Very true. Somebody's just said in the comment, how many were triplets? That's a good question. I'd like to know how many were triplets too. Well, without enough money to break the lease, the family had no other choice but to stay. And at the behest of the two clairvoyants, LaToya was told to create and build a Christian altar at the source of the hauntings, which happened to be in the basement. Yeah. So she allegedly had also been instructed to draw crosses on every door and bathe her children in olive oil, according to these sources. Essentially an attempt to cleanse or even exorcise, I guess, her children and the home.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've never heard of taking a bath.
And olive oil?
Slimy when you step out.
I mean, they're children, not a breadstick. Let's not dip them in olive oil. Come on.
Do you want Parmesan with that? Anyways, so dressed in all white, LaToya and Rosa covered an end table with a white cloth, placed statues of the Holy Family, of course, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, laid out a Bible and opened it to Psalms 91, which begins, quote, "Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty." Then it goes on to read, comforting passages of protection from a myriad of problems, essentially. And this really did seem to do the trick, because for 3 days, not much happened in the home. But it was on the third day, I know.
Uh-huh.
It's always that damn number 3.
Mm-hmm.
Why do y'all think we have 3 hosts? Anyways, well, on that third day, one of the statues was thrown across the basement with force and broke. Now, I don't know if it was Jesus, Mary, or Joseph, but it was one of them. I read different. Some said it was Jesus. Some said it was Mary. None said it was Joseph. Joseph was fine. So by now, it was ultimately decided by everyone involved that the family was experiencing a demonic haunting.
Okay.
Which, with all this progression, yeah, I can see that. I can see where they would go there,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, after this incident around April of the same year, which is we're in 2012 still, LaToya gave up and reached out to a physician for help. And this really didn't help things at all and actually made matters much, much worse. Because during the initial visit, one of the boys cursed the pediatrician, allegedly using a demonic voice, and then was hurled into a wall while no one was close to the child. Well, this prompted the Department of Child Services, or DCS for short, prompted them to do a report in which it states that the child was, quote, magically thrown against the wall. It says it in the report.
Okay.
Both boys after this passed out, and the hospital staff turned to the authorities and reported the incident. Now, the authorities' response, they sent multiple ambulances and 8 police officers for this incident. A little overkill in my opinion, but whatever. And this is when DCS got fully involved due to other reports in the mix. A neighbor of the Ammons family actually had recently reported LaToya to DCS, stating that they believe the children were merely performing for their mother to help quiet her own mental health issues. So after the doctor called the authorities, it was then that DCS worker would witness the most horrifying and intense situation throughout this whole case. This incident took place at the hospital with caseworker Valerie Washington present in the room. Valerie had brought the boys into another examination room away from their mother, which is protocol, if that's who you think is causing the issue, but along with their grandmother, Rosa. And all the blame was centered around LaToya at this point, and that the children were acting out for her, but not their grandmother, which is why Rosa was allowed to be in the room. So the 7-year-old boy suddenly began to make the most awful noises, growling at his older brother, stating that he wanted to kill him and that it was, quote, time to die. And then he bared his teeth at the DCS worker. And this prompted his older brother, that's the younger brother doing this, prompted the older brother to respond by headbutting him in the stomach. So hospital staff get alerted to the situation. They all come into the room. In all, it took 5 hospital staff members to be able to hold the 7-year-old down, and the grandmother began to pray.
So just a freakish amount of strength.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
And these are hospital workers.
These are hospital workers. And what happened next left everybody in the room now that witnessed this completely stunned. When Rosa approached the boy, the older boy, the 9-year-old, and grasped his hands to pray, the boy looked at his grandmother, gave an evil-looking grin, slid across the floor all the way to the wall. With his back to the wall, he proceeded to walk up the wall backwards to the ceiling and flip himself over and land back on the floor.
What the fuck?
And
this,
of course,
this is all documented. This is
yes.
in all okay.
So he
Yes.
just backed up to the wall and did one of these up the
Like
wall
crab walk.
and got. And
Essentially,
put
she
his hands over.
has a hold of his hands. Grandmother has a hold of his hands praying.
Mhm.
He backs up to the wall and
Right.
begins essentially places his leg up and begins to just walk backwards up the
Right.
wall till he gets to the ceiling, not using his hands because she's
Oh.
holding his hands. It's just his legs. He begins to walk backwards up the wall till he gets to the ceiling, flips back down and comes and lands back down on the floor.
She's hanging on to him, and suddenly he's a trapeze act.
Pretty much. Yeah.
If he went across the ceiling, does it say that she was also lifted up off the floor at any point? Or
Nope.
Okay.
No, it is not. And only him.
All right.
That defies this kind of gravity walk, if you will.
Yeah, that and documented by hospital workers, and I believe the social
DPS.
service or the the
DCS.
Child Protective
DCS,
Services
yeah.
person was there.
Yep. So the hospital staff was not only shocked, but also horrified as well and ran to get a doctor so that the boy could do the same thing in front of the doctor. But there was only one issue. Not only could the boy not do it again, but he also had no memory of doing it for the first time.
Okay.
And I find that actually very interesting coming from the hospital staff because we've all got kids in our life in some form or fashion that are, little, young. What is the thing that they do whenever you want them to do something? Because it was cool. Like, do it again. What do? They freaking do it
Mm-hmm.
because they want that attention from the adults. They're like, oh, the adults,
Yeah.
So the fact that he couldn't do it, wouldn't do it, and couldn't remember doing it, I don't know. I find that kind of interesting because a kid that's about 9 years old, especially, would definitely want to do it again because he's getting attention from the adults.
Well, and that's such a cool trick. If I could do it, I'd show everybody.
You ain't lying.
I'd be like, watch this shit. I just learned how to do this. Isn't it cool? Okay, so we have the 7-year-old. The 7-year-old has showed his teeth, spoken tongues, growled at his brother, which causes the brother to headbutt him in the stomach. And that's the 9-year-old. The 9-year-old now also walks up a wall and does a flip off the ceiling and lands back in front of Granny, still holding Granny's hands.
Yep. All in front of staff members, hospital staff members, and a DCS worker.
All right, that's I definitely find that highly unusual for two in a home to be being picked on.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's interesting. I'm fascinated. Carry on with your fabulous story.
Well, regardless of the beliefs of the hospital staff, LaToya and her mother, or even the DCS caseworker, an emergency appeal was filed the very next day, removing the children from LaToya's care. The kids were sent to a group home for psychiatric evaluation and were examined for any signs of abuse. Nothing was ever noted on that. Now, the wall climbing incident wasn't the only reason the kids were removed. It was also being reported that the children were missing a lot of school during this time as well. LaToya had explained her kids' absence by saying that the spirits had made them sick or they would keep them up all night without any sleep. She told DCS that if the kids were not asleep by 11 at night, the spirits would come out and keep them up all night, throwing and moving things within the house. Now, according to a 2012 Washington Post article, the family had a previous DCS history regarding educational neglect that dated all the way back to 2009. So roughly about 3 years prior to this. And at that time, things were happening inside the house that was causing children mental and emotional stress back then. But
do we know what that was?
No, I wasn't able to dig that up.
Probably
but
sealed. It's a kid's record. Okay.
Yeah. But could that have potentially been a precursor to what is currently happening? That was one of the first thoughts that I had. So,
and it was the same home?
No, separate.
Different home.
Different home. Yes. Well, and LaToya Ammons herself also underwent psychiatric evaluations in which, again, nothing was noted. The hospital staff got in contact with the hospital chaplain who met with LaToya, and the two of them together decided that they needed to reach out to a priest. And in this case, it was a man known as Father Maginot. Now, we're now in that mindset. We got to get a priest. It's been decided wholeheartedly that this is demonic.
I mean, I would think so. If no sort of mental, they're not detecting any sort of mental health issues. They're not detecting any sort of abuse in the home. You've seen a kid walk backwards up the ceiling.
That had done it for me.
Yeah, that had done it for me. I'd have been slinging holy water. Mm-hmm. Be gone, Satan. Well, Father Maginot decided to meet with the family at the house instead of just jumping into an exorcism right away, which he initially thought was a very strange initial request. That's what they wanted. There had been a recent rapid amount of increase in amount of exorcism requests. But honestly, from everybody that I've talked to in demonology and actual priests and ordained ministers that we know, it truly is a rarity that priests actually stumble across the true demonic cases to this level.
Right.
So with an exorcism taking place, there is this practical edge to this practice. Sometimes in these cases, even the mere mention of an exorcism can snap people out of this. But more often than not, we found that it only makes matter worse. You know, it's downhill from here. I'm working on my accents like Ryan. I'm trying to develop my repertoire. But anyways, so Maginot's thoughts on this were to meet with the family, get a better sense of what was going on, and more than likely he would find that there was this natural explanation for what is happening, that this can be attributed to a natural affliction in some words. In other words, toxicity in the house causing some type of shift in moods or personality that affects a person in a negative way. That was his mindset going into this.
Right.
So he's basically doing his
It's a very responsible investigation, right? Eliminate everything that could be possible, and then whatever's left, no matter how improbable, is your answer.
You eliminate the natural emotional or mental afflictions in the house over for you jump on the bandwagon that's paranormal.
Right.
I mean, he's doing his due diligence.
He's doing everything he should be doing.
So with that, and in that thinking, he heads over to their house. Now, during Maginot's visit with the family, the following occurred. He was shown where the muddy footprints had appeared on the wooden floor. And he began to interview LaToya and Rosa. And while he did, a light began flickering and emitted an ominous noise. When he finally acknowledged this flickering light, he told the entity to, quote, cut it out. And the flickering allegedly stopped. From that situation and a 4-hour conversation, Maginot came to the conclusion that the family was indeed being haunted by a demonic presence.
Wait, a weird chance electrical something, and the house was built in 1926, and you don't think that could be bad wiring? Just a question. A flickering light. I got flickering lights, but you know.
I read that and I was like, wait a minute. Are we seriously just saying it's a light bulb?
Yeah.
That does not make sense to me, because we have talked to people who have been under the impression that they have had something demonic happening to them, and when we go and dig a little bit more, we find things that we didn't expect to find that had somehow been neglected to be mentioned. And we're like, okay, this is not that. Just talk. So we're going to take everybody in the house's word for it, not actually going to do any digging. Oh, a light flickered, cut it out. Oh, it stopped. Yeah, you got a demon. No.
Thanks for that awesome recap, Shelley. I love that.
I'm just making sure I understand.
Yes, no,
that's
that. There's nothing else to that. That is that little check mark of a box.
No checking for any kind of electrical interference or any kind of,
not that I was able to find.
Okay.
Not that I was able to find.
All right.
It's a flickering light in a 4-hour conversation.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Father Mario, roll on with yourself. What's his name?
I don't know how I feel about Father Maginot so far. Now, but just based off of what you just said, I'm not sure how I feel about him yet.
Well, he knew that he needed to exorcise LaToya. That's what he knew.
Okay.
And so he contacted the bishop, who pretty much blew it off and told him to look it up or Google it, if you will. Like Google it. So essentially the bishop wouldn't approve anything, but if Father Maginot could find something that the church didn't need to approve.
Holy shit, you can't find anything on the web.
How to exorcise demons and influence people.
Yeah.
How to win friends and exorcise demons. That's pretty much about it.
What's wrong with these people?
I don't know. Listen, I'm going to tell you right now, don't do this. Don't Google something and try your hand at it concerning the paranormal. There's a lot of people out there who like to fake crap and produce false content, and just looking up if you truly are experiencing something, just looking it up can be horrific in some cases.
Yeah, why are you going to trust what this says?
The internet is full of trolls, and you do not want to listen to some of the things that they have to say.
No, you don't. No, you don't. Well, however, once this research had been done, Father Maginot held a crucifix to LaToya's head.
Mm-hmm.
And this caused LaToya to convulse uncontrollably. The flickering light and the convulsions led Maginot to believe that the entities were indeed afraid of him, which he considered a victory. Before leaving, he instructed the family to seek shelter elsewhere. So Maginot went around the house and blessed every room with holy water while reading Bible passages, and LaToya and Rosa sought shelter with relatives in Indianapolis.
You're healed. Get the hell out of the house. What?
Oh, it gets better. No, it gets better. It gets better. Anyways, all the while, the conclusion to the kids' evaluations came in. When the youngest child was pressured into giving answers, challenged, or redirected, he was unable to do so due to being possessed, quote unquote, there.
Okay.
In this case, psychologists believe that there was nothing wrong with the child psychologically. The psychologists interviewing the middle child and the oldest as well came to the same conclusion as the youngest. It appeared the daughter was being influenced by her mother's extreme religious beliefs and paranormal superstitions. However, DCS needed more and sought the help of the police.
Okay.
Not out of the realm of possibilities. You know, when you throw the paranormal in there, it gets kind of, what? So DCS agent and Father Maginot, along with police captain Charles Austin, went to the Ammons home to check for livability. And DCS was unconvinced since the psychologists were blaming the mother. Well, Captain Austin stated in a police report that he had seen and heard unexplainable things during the visit. And here's some interesting things or knowledge, though, about Captain Austin. Allegedly, Captain Austin already believed in the paranormal and eventually came to believe in the demonic and satanic details of this case.
Mm-hmm.
And someone kind of with this predisposition of the paranormal would be more primed to react differently in a situation like this. And in his report, Captain Austin stated his flashlight flickered uncontrollably in the basement, eventually turning off by itself. And that was particularly disturbing to him as he had just put fresh batteries in the flashlight. He had said that in recordings, he caught what he thought was the word "hey" coming through and claimed that he saw faces appear in photos that he had taken in the basement. And I'm going to tell you right now, this portion of his claims and the things that he says, this don't sit right with me personally. He is there in the capacity of an officer, with a duty. And it seems to me that based on his report, what he was doing was acting in the capacity of a paranormal investigator.
Yes.
And lastly, he said that he brought something back with him because he reported that his driver's seat kept moving back and forth on his way home. And the movement was so intense that it actually broke the seat motor.
And it was in his police car because that should be easily documented.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, even with all of this, DCS was still unconvinced. And what was most concerning during this visit is what transpired in the basement. Now, the entire basement had been paid over except for beneath the stairs, which we actually have a photo of. And underneath the stairs was nothing but loose dirt, as you can tell. Father Maginot continued to roam through the house with the DCS family caseworker and Captain Austin, and particularly in the basement. During Maginot's mini visit, he had become convinced that something sinister had taken place beneath the stairs and that a body was buried there.
Okay.
This was his explanation for the poltergeist activity in the house. You know, the flickering lights, footsteps, door creaking, etc. Which I'll give him that. I can understand. Okay, I'll give you that. I'll go that far. What was actually found there was a little bit more disturbing, in my opinion. The police ended up digging a 3x4 hole at the behest of Father Maginot and revealed the following in this hole: children's socks with the ankle cut off, a cooking pan, a drapery cord, a press-on nail, comb, candle, heavy metal bar, and a pair of panties.
Huh.
And Father Maginot instantly jumped to the conclusion that the previous owner of the house was in fact a necromancer and used these items and rituals in order to commune with and raise the dead.
What? Hold on. That's Evel Knievel couldn't make that jump. That is a long way from finding a few random items that, like, yes.
Okay, the underwear buried. Okay, they've been there while the washer and dryer's in the basement.
I guess.
Going up the stairs, you could have dropped something.
Yes.
Ended up being covered over a candle. I don't know where that I don't.
You
know.
have exposed dirt underneath the stairs.
Yes.
Anything you carry up or down the stairs can easily be dropped down in there.
Do we know if they had pets? Because I mean,
no, they did not. They did not have pets.
No pets. Okay.
No pets. Because remember, they heard the dogs barking, but they had no dogs.
They had no dogs. You're right.
Yeah. Well,
that's really painting with a broad brush is what he's doing. That's
suddenly because you found some things that are under the dirt.
Yeah.
We got a necromancer. Get out of here with that shit.
Well, Captain Austin agreed with him and believed the house to be a portal to hell. He had stated that the police radio emitted a strange noise when he was parked outside the house. And by now, Captain Austin had become completely convinced and fully immersed in the story of the Carolina Street house and asked his fellow officers to look into the history of the home. Not much was found. Supposedly, the house had been built by a newlywed couple whose young son allegedly passed away in the home, with the wife following soon after. However, other than those two, nothing else has ever been noted with the house other than it changing hands over the years until finally becoming a rental home. I do not know what they passed away from. I have no idea what happened. But Father Magino, learning this, came to believe that the new...
Give it to me. I'm ready.
Okay. Shelly hanging her head. Came to the belief that the newlywed couple who built the house might have built a shrine to their dead son in the basement in order to communicate.
And put panties in it? What kind of weird?
Yeah. What does that got to do? And press on nail? I don't.
Maybe they've been hoping for a girl. I don't know what.
Well, sorry, somebody in the comments said, so we playing D&D in the house now?
If you are, please invite me.
But, this is, for Father Magino, this is an easy conclusion to come to here. He is a religious authoritative figure. Any communication opens a portal. Therefore, it's a portal to hell. You see how we get there? Boop, 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 boop.
I see how he makes the connection because the religious belief that you don't mess with spirits.
Right.
I get that.
Right.
But and I know that some religious beliefs believes that any spirit is all demons just there to tempt you. So I do understand how he goes to that. But to me, he has not sufficiently proven to me that there is anything demonic or spiritually untoward going on in that house yet. I see a lot of speculation going on.
I'll tell you right now, the people in the comments are fucking killing me right now. Serial killer memorabilia. I have a basement where the laundry is. I drop stuff all the time. We play in D&D in this house. Sounds about right for Indiana. That portal is my job. Anyways, y'all keep them coming. They're freaking hilarious. I'm trying not to crack up while reading this. So the social worker who would come, what were you going to say, Ryan? Go ahead.
I'm saying, like, I don't know. It just seems like they would in order for there to be something like that lurking in that house, someone at some time would have had to have summoned whatever that is, if that is truly what is there. But I don't know if someone like pulling the shrine to the dead son just out of the ether is.
Is the Ouija board, man.
Much.
Communicated through the Never mind.
Nice.
The social worker who accompanied the group during this excursion quit her job shortly after the discovery and ended up moving far away from the area. So, and that is because something was powerful enough in her mind to call it quits. So the next visit,
she'd seen the kid go backwards up the wall. Like I said, that'd have been enough for me.
That'd have been enough for me too.
Mm-hmm. Same.
Well, then the next visit to the house was the same group, except the social worker, and this time the group brought a dog along with them. Now, I wasn't
observer.
Yeah, I wasn't able to find anything that reported the dog being alerted. So there goes that. Because I find that interesting because even when we get calls about paranormal activity, one of the questions we ask is, are there animals in the house? If so, how do they react?
Right.
Especially dogs, What they did find was a clear, thick, and gooey oil that was covering the blinds in the attic. Now, skeptics in the group believe that either the mother or grandmother of the house had placed the oil on the blinds in a way to anoint the blinds. And they didn't think anything further of it, wiped it off the blinds, and went on their way. which I find, if I'm like, why do you wipe it off the blinds if that's what you think it is?
They're already dunking their kids in olive oil. I mean, it's not hard to, they probably throw it on blinds.
Here.
That's very true.
And I'm tend to deal with them. Perhaps they were anointing the house, or perhaps Father Marahuchi, or what the hell his name is.
Marahuchi?
I don't know. I can't think of his name. He's not worth me remembering.
Well, when the group finally returned,
maybe he spread that crap on there.
He could have. Very well could have been trying to bless and anoint and all that kind of stuff. Could have been him. But when the group finally returned, this time with a new caseworker in tow, they found the same clear, thick, gooey oil dripping from the blinds in the attic. The new social worker, not thinking anything, reached out and she touched the oil and was immediately affected. And this is according to the sources and the witness that saw this. The blood drained from her finger that she used to touch the blind, and it bent as if it was broken, which sent the caseworker into a panic attack. Well, this led Father Maginot to believe. I'm just going to love saying his name from now on. Just watch Shelley roll her eyes. This led Father Maginot to believe that the substance the caseworker had touched was an ectoplasm of a demonic entity, or a manifestation, if you will.
She got slimed?
Oh my God. She got slimed.
They're talking ectoplasm. Is this fucking 1920 and this is the Fox sisters talking? I mean, come on now. Dude, did no one think at any point to bring in maybe...
Somebody said demon piss.
Demon piss.
Pedal. Yeah.
Did somebody at any point ever think to maybe bring in a scientist to take a sample to see what it was?
I guess not.
Test it. Put a little sample. Where are the cops? Why don't they call the cops? Say there's something weird up here on these. Can you please come and
No, the cops are there. That's what I'm saying. It's Captain Austin, Father Maginot, and this new caseworker. That's this group with this dog at this point.
And the dog does not react whenever she's flipping out, going, I got slimed.
Nope, not that I was able to find.
Okay.
Well, after the newest caseworker had visited the house, the finger situation was just the beginning. She apparently suffered third-degree burns in an accident and went on to break 3 separate ribs in 3 separate incidents. All of this within the first 30 days after visiting the house.
Holy shit.
Is she clumsy? Has she ever injured herself like that before? If 3 separate incidents, I mean, hell, I'm clumsy. So,
I mean, there's just some random ass gooey substance anywhere. It's probably not a good idea to touch it in the first place.
Somebody said it's the demon doo-doo. It's dookie demons. That's what it is. It's the dookie demons, guys.
No need to describe, Blake.
Yep.
Found them.
Yep, found them. So the original caseworker that had quit to enter in the original caseworker that had quit had to enter into intensive therapy to deal with what she had experienced. So was the original, quit, moved away, and then she ended up going into intensive therapy. Captain Austin also claimed to have multi near-death experiences after visiting the house. Mm-hmm. Roughly a month after the children had been removed from the house, their symptoms seemed to calm in the new house that they were now living in. And this led Father Maginot to believe that the demonic entity or entities were attached to LaToya herself. LaToya would suffer from recurring dreams of violently and physically assaulting her own mother, as well as headaches in or near the house and repeated illnesses. Mm-hmm. Father Maginot requested yet again to perform an exorcism on LaToya, and this time was actually given permission. In total, Father Maginot conducted 3 exorcisms on LaToya, 2 in English and 1 in Latin, which were spread out over a month. And during the rituals, Father Maginot concluded that LaToya was being tormented by one of the worst baddies possible, Beelzebub himself.
Is that the only one he could think of?
I guess. Well, according to Maginot, he had exorcised LaToya of all the malevolent entities, including Beelzebub, which many would consider one of the most powerful demons. Mm-hmm. And towards the end of this year, in November, LaToya was able to regain custody of the children, and the family moved away to Indianapolis and haven't had any experiences since. Well, in 2014, the Indianapolis Star picked up this story, as I said in the beginning, and ran with it, causing nationwide attention on the case. And the Indianapolis Star actually published a photo in the newspaper which showed what appears to be, words are hard tonight, a shadowy figure standing on the porch, allegedly when no one was home. And we actually have a photo of that. It is in the second from the right pane. It looks like a figure is standing there.
Hang on, let me brighten.
That looks like a cat with its tail hanging down.
To me, it don't look like nothing, but y'all know I can't see shit in pictures.
Don't really. So, point this out again. What am I looking for?
You see the door?
Yes.
You go 2 panes to the right of that.
Okay.
Looking at the screen.
Am I supposed to see head and shoulders?
Head and shoulder, the little white thing that's in there.
I see that.
I'll look at it later a little closer.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to keep it up for a little bit just so that while I explain some of this, so people can really look at it.
Do we know who took the photo? Do we know?
I do get to that here in just a little bit. Well, in this same year, Zach Bagans with Ghost Adventures purchased the house for $35,000. Now, Zach Bagans ended up making a documentary about this home that's pictured called Demon House. And Bagans was the only one since the Ammons family to have experienced paranormal activity in the house when he barricaded himself inside overnight like an airtight demonic chamber. In the documentary, Zach suggests that possibly all the horrible things that have taken place in Gary, Indiana comes from the portal of hell located inside the Carolina Street home. And it is interesting, though, I will say that after this documentary was filmed, Zach Bagans himself suffered from an eye condition that still affects him to this day. He eventually, Zach, had the house demolished in 2016 for, quote, the good of all kind. But even the individuals who lived in the house after the Ammons family said that nothing was amiss in the home. Now, this could actually be the case since demonic and even poltergeist hauntings can be attached to an individual person, not necessarily the home itself. Mm-hmm. So, Brittany, we can take that down now. So after the story broke wide open, LaToya ended up selling the rights to her story, and she refused to talk about it with anyone. So we're only left with very few details. And in the time that LaToya did talk, she only talked to a national TV show with which she reportedly had an exclusivity agreement. Not uncommon, but it does raise some eyebrows.
Do we know what TV show it was?
I know there was a mention of Inside Edition at some point.
Yeah, makes sense.
So, yeah. What ended up happening was that Netflix actually purchased the rights to the story for a whopping $65 million in a bidding war. However, the rights were purchased from someone else before they were then flipped around and then sold to Netflix. So LaToya actually saw none of that.
Oh, damn.
And Netflix will now soon be announcing their new movie, The Deliverance, starring Glenn Close, Monique, and Omar Epps. And it's already in post-production, by the way. All right, I looked it up. Looks interesting, actually. But the tagline actually reads, quote, a family living in a home in Indiana discovers strange demonic occurrences that convince them and the community that the house is a portal to hell. Well, maybe this will compel LaToya to come forward with more details about what transpired in the home, hopefully. But that's just the end of the story, not the controversy surrounding it. So I got a couple of things that I do like to point out. This story is actually split almost down the middle between the ones that believe and the ones who remain more skeptical about the Ammons experience. You have the generic issues surrounding the case. Various agencies and individuals remain tight-lipped, citing medical confidentiality and privacy, so nothing has been open knowledge from the staff of the hospital where the wall-walking incident took place. Things like the boot prints and the creaking door can easily be explained by some, as Shelley said, or by a person unaware that they're tracking in mud and the sounds of an old house settling. Rosa Campbell's vision of a shadowy figure pacing in the living room can be easily explained away as a surreal or vivid dream or even a night terror or dream-walking experience, whatever you want to call it. And you've also got the situation we've already explained where nothing happened before or after the Ammons' tenure in the home. Where you get further into discussion are some of the more complex topics. Many have said that the police officers were predisposed to the paranormal, therefore they acted in the capacity of a paranormal investigator and not a police officer. Therefore, their outlook on the situation was skewed from the beginning. On further digging, LaToya's children did have that history of missing school, and LaToya had said that the children were out of school due to the ghosts and demons keeping them up at night. However, in 2009, that I talked about earlier, what I was able to find is that a complaint had actually been lodged against her for her children's, quote, irregular school attendance. There was never any mention of any of this before that.
History of tourism. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Furthermore, the police photo, quote unquote, that was published in the Indianapolis Star that we just looked at was cited as, quote, photo by Heyman Police, was actually not property of the police department. Skeptical investigator Joe Nickel, who wrote the article Skeptical Inquirer, the 200 Demons House, writes that the Heyman police chief assured Nickel it was not an official police photo because the agency had not been involved in the case at all. More than likely, it was produced unofficially by an individual, and Nickel's article gives more compelling evidence to the debunking of the paranormal activity in the home. He obviously states that the police officers were influenced by the ghost TV shows, especially when they decided to pull out the recorder to capture the word "hey." More than likely, what they caught, and in the audio and in the photos, was verbal I can't ever say that word. Pareidolia. Thank you, pareidolia. Whatever. I can't ever pronounce it. I stutter all the time over it. But anyways, to where you're seeing things, and hearing things that aren't actually there. Yes, right. Exactly. So, which could also explain the apparition on the porch. And in this article, Nickel also cites the historical references of paranormal activity that center around a child or children and involve mischief a child could cause and was in many times actually caught. One of those that he cites is actually the Enfield poltergeist, which the case in London, we covered that back in episode 20. Mm-hmm. Well, Nickel was able to actually interview quite a few people surrounding this case, including a tenant after the Ammons family who lived in the home, as well as the landlord's wife. The landlord, Charles Reed, wasn't talking anymore about the case, but his wife took a call from Nickel in 2014 and stated that they would no longer be commenting on the case. The only answer that she gave was that her husband's skepticism remained unchanged. But in various interviews, the landlord also stated that he had never experienced any activity in the home and told the Indianapolis Star about the Ammons, quote, "I thought I heard it all. This was a new one for me. My belief system has a hard time jumping over that bridge." And it was reported, or it has been reported allegedly through all this, that LaToya was actually behind on her lease payments. But when searching further into that, I wasn't able to find or produce factual evidence. Not saying it's not there. I just wasn't able to find it. As for the tenant living in the home, when Nickel spoke to them after the Ammons, she said that they didn't know much about the case, so they didn't really follow it. But they just wanted to live in peace as they were being besieged by curiosity seekers after the events gained nationwide attention. And the man that was there, he called the whole thing, quote, hocus pocus. That's what he said. And other things to note on the case include, the children's psychologists, other professionals that interviewed the children concluded in the reports, quote, "The children were acting deceptively and in accordance with their mother's belief." The children's physician wrote in his medical notes, quote, "delusions of ghost in home," and, quote, "hallucinations." And the effects felt by those who visited the home, i.e. the DCS caseworker and her fingers, Zach Bagans, his eyes, and even an individual hospitalized with organ failure that was also associated with Demon House, can be explained by possibly contaminants in the home, black mold or some other kind of airborne contaminant, because they had sealed themselves in. He explains the following path, Nickel does in his article. He basically says moving the family into a new neighborhood would have caused stress to the kids and caused difficulty. Lacking these new playmates, the children began to get on each other's nerves, which caused LaToya to report to the physician that, quote, "the children fight one another and are abusive to one another, then they pass out." That is actually what she is told. Secondly, the mother and or grandmother's response to this behavior encourages them. A DCS source stated that when one of the boys was asked about the ghost in the home, he responded that they don't talk to him. However, when LaToya told her kid that he can be truthful to the medical professionals, he told them that, yes, they talk to me. And this prompted DCS to believe the children were acting and performing for their mother based on her beliefs. Mm-hmm. So that kind of allowed LaToya to set the stage. Ammons was a religious believer with a high superstition quotient, believing in invisible entities and consulting clairvoyance. She even insisted to Inside Edition that she knew it as fact when one of the clairvoyants told her the house was infested with demons. This prompted the, quote, shrine to be built for protection, as well as the others that police observed in the home. It wasn't the only one. She also took the kids to various temples and churches to remove said demons. One psychologist said LaToya did not appear to be, quote, experiencing symptoms of psychosis, but another wondered, quote, whether her religiosity may be masking underlying delusional ideation of perceptual disturbances. Several professionals concluded the children were acting, with one of them stating, quote, "This appears to be an unfortunate and sad case of a child who has been induced into a delusional system perpetuated by his mother and potentially reinforced by other relatives." And DCS is cited as saying that LaToya needed to employ, quote, alternate forms of discipline not directly related to religion and demon possession. However, with all that, this is where he loses me. he lost me in this article at this point, because he goes into trying to debunk some of the more extreme points of this case.
Mm-hmm.
And he says that as for the children, it's chalked up to TV ghost shows and movies, and that ever since The Exorcist was released, anyone can know how to manipulate his or her eyes, growl, speak in a deep voice, feign a trance, scream and thrash, or otherwise stimulate being, quote, possessed. My issue with that, most of my life has been spent researching the paranormal, watching said ghost shows and movies, including every Exorcist movie, the Amityville movies, The Devil Inside, Deliver Us from Evil. I mean, I could go on and on and on, including actual exorcism videos on YouTube. I don't even know the right thing to do, to say, how to speak, or whatever voice to use to fake a possession. I'm not saying that there aren't people out there who can.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think a 7, 9, and 12-year-old not only are going to be able to retain that information, but accomplish such feats by producing and performing it so convincingly well.
Yeah.
And what he says at the end of the article, he goes on to say that when the boy was lifted and thrown into the wall with nobody touching him, when his legs and genitals are being pulled at, is that he, quote, apparently he simply launched himself. He says the same things about the daughter, levitating off the bed, saying it's part of the stock effects of an alleged demon possession as shown in numerous movies, and stating that she simply, quote, took advantage of the springiness of the mattress. And lastly, hold on. We almost there, because I know y'all got a lot to say. We almost there. I got like 2 more points to make on this, because I was like, this is kind of bullshit.
Uh-huh.
Lastly, he explains the now infamous wall walking incident. And I know everybody's asking about that in the freaking comments. What about the wall walking? He explains it as follows. He claims that the grandmother, holding the hands of the child, one or both, helped him to walk up the wall and steadied her grandson alone until he reached the ceiling and flipped back over to his feet. His conclusion, since he couldn't speak to hospital staff nor the DCS agent, was that it was simply the stunt of an agile boy with the aid of his elderly grandmother. And he ends up rounding out his article by saying Maginot's report was rife with the logical fallacy called arguing from ignorance. In other words, we don't know what caused it, so it must be demons. I can say the same thing about his article, because he rounds that article out basically by saying, we don't know what caused it. How could it be demons? It makes absolutely no sense towards the end of the article. So my thoughts are, what are y'all's thoughts on this case?
First off, let me say, Joe Nickel is a giant party pooper. I know exactly who he is. And everything, like he is like the skeptic. He's the go-to skeptic. I think like him and James Randi was too before James Randi died. But I mean, they do important work though, because you have to have that perspective.
Oh, I 100% agree. And yes, he is of the skeptical mind. I understand that. Yes.
And he's just so, like, the thing about Joe Nickel though is he's just so very sure of himself and very sure of everything. And it's just like, man, sometimes there's things you just can't explain.
There is.
So, but that being said, the springiness of the mattress. I have seen kids jump on beds. I used to do it when I was a kid. I've never floated. I've never levitated.
You've never held at that high.
Yeah, you never got up there and held.
No, I don't think I've ever done that. So I think that part is. But he doesn't know what he's talking about.
I'm trying to run through that in Rolodex in my head. Who were the witnesses to that levitation? So the friend is woken up. It isn't the friend who goes and gets somebody. The friend is woken up and, oh my God, she's levitating.
And screams. The mom comes in and sees it. LaToya comes in and sees it and goes and alerts other family members that are in the house at that time, because they're all together grieving the loss of their loved one.
But no other family members go on record saying they see that the child has levitated. This is, again, LaToya's account.
Not that I was able to find.
So again, it's a singular account.
Somebody said it's the new TikTok challenge. Launch yourself into a wall.
Yeah.
Now,
that too.
I will tell you, I can see, because we see stunt people do it in movies all the time. There is a certain, way that you can make yourself appear to fall or do anything like that. So yeah, I think that the launching themselves into a wall, I think that's entirely possible. And because it would be unexpected, that wouldn't be what you would think to do. Now, also the walking up the wall, I can tell you, I have a boy, and whenever he was little, he wanted me to hold his arms and he wanted to put his feet up on the wall. And of course, I didn't care. I'm like, not my wall. Go ahead. But the flipping over, that's a trick, because
he was
whenever
also
my
on the
son
ceiling too, right? Wasn't that he
yes,
was
Yes.
before he
and
flipped
that's
over?
and that's where it comes in. Now, yes, he could usually get his feet and get level with me, but he had to have, his arms here on mine, and I had to pretty much be supporting his arms in their
By the way,
entirety.
real quick, so that y'all have it in your head, this is Latoya and Rosa.
Okay.
This is mother and grandmother.
Okay.
So this is the grandmother that we're talking about.
Yeah, the grandmother, and I have to tell you that it was, but my son was 9, he was almost taller than I was, and the grandmother looks like she's a relatively small lady, and
Yeah.
I don't know what the child looks like, but my son at 9 was almost bigger than me, and it was like that was a bit of a struggle.
Yeah.
So I can see maybe the walking up the wall with the assistance, but the actually on the ceiling and flipping
On the ceiling,
over,
yeah.
that's where my issue comes in. Go ahead, Ryan.
A question I do have about this whole case is, was any of the because all the children reported speaking in tongues and having these fits of unimaginable strength, were any of them ever tested for epilepsy?
No, that's a good point. I did not find anything that said that they
But
had
again,
been
they're
tested for
kids.
epilepsy.
That record might be sealed.
True.
too.
True.
I think
True.
I think that first and foremost should have been that maybe, and I always have to just go straight to blame the mother, because that's just too easy. But maybe mom and grandma might have been needed. They might have needed to have professional help, and maybe potentially some medication. We all know that you can. I don't know. I don't go too far into that.
Well, I mean, my thing. Look, okay. Here's my thing. The wall walking incident is what gets me. Okay,
that's
Same.
what holds me up to.
where I'm going to tell y'all right now, and I know that he'll agree with me. The household that I grew up in, I am 5'7". My brother is 6 foot, and when he was 9, he was damn near a grown man. I'm not going to lie. He was a big boy, growing up. Ain't no goddamn way that my damn grandmother is going to be able to hold his hands and walk his ass backwards up the wall and flip him over and land him back on the ground. It ain't freaking happening. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So that's the part that gets me. The fact that it's witnessed also by hospital staff members, because it does say in the reports that it took 5 members to hold a 7-year-old down while all this was going on. So you have 5 hospital staff members in there, a grandmother, 2 boys, and a DCS caseworker. That's all seeing this. And their first response, the hospital staff member's first response, was go get the doctor.
Yeah.
So that he can do it again, so that he can see it. So the doctor comes in. That's how we get to Father Magino. So the dots line up. I can't explain this walking up the wall incident. It doesn't make sense to me.
And you can't really explain the strength of a 7-year-old.
Right. Having to be held down by 5 people.
Now, could they have been trying to corral him without injuring him, and therefore more hands, more witnesses? Hey, okay, that way nobody has to apply excessive pressure anywhere to, okay, I might be able to go with you on that. Go ahead.
Yeah, see, my brother just said in the comments, I was 250 pounds when I was 11 and about 5'10". Our grandmother was this big around, and not frail. She was a kick-ass woman, but she wasn't gonna be no lifting 250-pound, boy. I mean, I'm sorry, it's just not gonna happen. The other thing that is like the levitation, I mean, the friend never came back, and that's mentioned in multiple reports.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like,
but maybe
I don't
the friend
know.
had their feel crazy for mama, and why? Because why is she having a friend stay over when everybody there for a wake?
Well,
That
I mean,
doesn't make
I
sense
mean, you
to
gotta,
comfort your
well, I was
child.
gonna say to comfort
Yeah.
your child. If the mom's all worried about, the family members that are having to come in, she's got to take care of them. They're at their house. She's gonna have to
So
clean,
you
cook,
added
all
an
this kind of
extra?
stuff. Yeah, to take care of your child. Maybe your child's upset. It ain't out of the norm. I used to, like, when I was growing up, I had friends stay at the house whenever they were experiencing, heavy things going on in their life. I mean,
Yeah.
they stayed at our house so that they had a comfort system and a regular system, while their parents went on to deal with different things in life. It's not out of the norm. So I can see that a 12-year-old's going to have a friend stay over if she's grieving at this point. Yeah, go ahead. Let's get you happy. Let's make you happy. I know you're sad right now. A friend staying over would be a good thing.
Or maybe the friend got a dose of crazy in the house and was like, screw this. I'm not coming back. This is bye. I don't know.
Possibility.
The whole levitation with the only actual account being Mama's, and I think Mama was probably misdiagnosed and probably was in need of some kind of care. What that is, I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but this just the only legitimate claims to me right now are the wall walking, and that's it. That's it. The child being maybe he is just being a bad kid and just being out of control and throwing hands and doing, I mean, you never know if the kid was just upset.
Not throwing hands.
I don't know. But I have
was
seen
my game of sorry.
Yeah. And maybe, and again, and this was in 2012, right? All
yes.
this happened in 2012.
Well, 2011, 2012. Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
so I can see a medical staff going, okay, listen, this kid's really out of control. We need lots of witnesses. We don't want to hurt him. Let's get him calmed down. And one person is not going to just try to bear hug this kid if he's that out of control. Even a 7. Y'all ever seen a kid under 10 throw a temper tantrum? I'm telling you, they're hard to get a hold of. If they're truly just flailing out of control,
not when you
might need help.
I saw my sister climb the curtains one time when she heard my mom. My sister was about 4 years old. She went down to my cousin's house. My mom told her no, and I literally saw that bitch climb the fucking curtains.
I'm telling you, a little kid riled up throwing a tantrum. It's hard to catch that little son of a bitch. So I actually can explain why it would take 5 people if they're really just if they are so worked up that they cannot control anything about them. Yeah, I can see, get some help, get some witnesses that we aren't hurting this child. We're trying to calm this child down. One of y'all go get the sedative. The wall walking is truly the only thing that I am going to call.
I'm sorry. Here's my thing. I eliminate anything that the police touched, that Father Maginot touched.
Right.
I can't. There's nothing verifiable there. That's the thing. The police went in under the capacity of paranormal investigators, and actually, honestly, that kind of pisses me off a little bit because you're being brought in to assist the DCS caseworker to help reach the conclusion of what's going on with these children.
Exactly.
You're not there to investigate the fucking house. Put the damn equipment away, leave it alone, whether you're in the paranormal or not, and leave it to ghost hunters and their team whenever you go home and watch them on Travel Channel. Go in, do your job, do your duty as a police officer, and report back what you find. Yeah. So I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little heated over that point of the whole story.
You're supposed to be the unbiased observer.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Father Maginot is another moment for me where I just want to, because of all these things that he's like, well, this is the. There's very little, from what I was able to find, investigation into what the hell is happening in this house. It's like we walked in, everybody was so caught up in the paranormal aspect of it.
They're in their own frenzy. Yeah.
Yeah, that they're feeding this machine.
Absolutely.
And it's like, if everybody would have just taken a step back, not only do I think that this case would not have gained the nationwide attention that it gained, but I think it would have had a completely different outcome.
No one looked at it objectively. Everyone came in with preconceived notions all the way around into this case. And if they were, in fact, which I think maybe they were experiencing something, but I think that everything was so muddied by Father Maginot and was he just a police officer, Austin? Or was
Captain Austin?
Captain Austin. I think everything was so muddied that now there's a lot of conjecture and there's a lot of, you don't know what is real and what isn't real in this case.
Yeah.
Everything's
been, the only thing that I find very interesting in this case is the fact, again, with Shelley, wall walking incident. That's pretty hard to explain. I'm trying to wrap my head around that. If the grandmother, the comment was just put into her comments, and it was a very well thought out comment. Even if the grandmother is 5'10", at this point, and you're adding, arms or whatever. I mean, to get him on the wall and hold him up to the ceiling as a grandmother, not only that, but a 9-year-old kid who's not a full grown man, you're going to have an issue spanning that height
depending
difference.
on how tall the child is and how tall grandma is and what their reach is up. Yeah.
So the wall walking incident on top of that, like everybody who witnessed it, the whole act of it, all that kind of stuff,
so pre-planned.
That would have had to been practiced and rehearsed and all that kind of stuff. I just do not see that taking place or happening.
And that's what I'm saying with this whole thing is either, like I said, either they did experience something and it got muddied up by the two that investigated it, or these kids could have suffered from epilepsy. And with, the herky-jerky movements and, people who have that lose control of their body, what if that was... that's even a bit of a stretch.
I've never seen an epileptic climb a wall backwards.
I've never seen them throw themselves into a wall either, in my opinion.
Yes, I'm saying even that's a bit of a stretch, but maybe medically, that's the only thing I can think of that could have caused that. But if grandma is holding up the kid like that in the middle of the room, somebody call Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey, because those two need to act.
They can go on the road. That's right.
Yes. So I don't know. That's the only the wall walking incident is, and I just think that
I think there are a lot of people
Father
that failed
Maggio
this family
and Police Captain Austin need to be slapped. Just like what are y'all doing?
I think that somebody said maybe the hospital was haunted. Maybe it
there
was.
You go.
There you go. There's the
before I would go with the house.
I think this case is a hard one to discuss and come to a final conclusion on your thought process on it, because I think over the years, the waters had gotten so freaking muddy with what had taken place and what had not. I think there are some very compelling moments in this case. I think that there are some very just rush to judgment and questionable moments in this case. I don't think that there was ever an actual investigation into the paranormal claims of this side.
And Zach
of this
does
case.
not count on that.
He was there to create, and I am not slamming him whatsoever, but he was there to create a documentary for an entertainment purpose.
Yes.
I do not classify him in an actual investigation of the location. What I am talking about is an unbiased, has no interest in an outcome of anything.
And no
walking
profit
in
to be had.
Exactly. Yeah. Walking in and investigating this location to give an actual consensus of what they think is going on in the home. So in my opinion, Zach Bagans is out on this. That whole documentary is out.
He did not investigate the house. He investigated for demons. Yes. But the house itself was not investigated.
Well, and he investigated for the sole purpose of creating something for an entertainment purpose. So,
not to say he didn't have some weird crap happen to him. He absolutely did. But the house was not investigated. The house was investigated for demons. He went in. It goes in with an agenda. We need somebody to walk in there without an agenda. I
think that's the issue here, is that, as you just said, Shelley, I'll reiterate it. Along the way, there were so many people who failed the Ammons family that I think, again, this could have had a completely different outcome. I don't think it would have reached the level that it did. So
I think that whoever that was, that there should have been, if you really wanted to know, you get someone in to inspect the plumbing. You get into that patch of, you put a whole, why was half of it cement and the other half dirt? Get somebody in there to break that up and see what's actually under that. There could have been some kind of, leaking fluid or something underneath there that was giving off some kind of chemical that was affecting, neuro connections. Get somebody there to inspect the wiring, flickering lights. Okay, that happens in a lot of houses.
Get a fungal expert.
Get somebody in there to check for mold, check attic spaces, break a hole in the wall, check that interior stuff. Even built in 1926, you probably have had some dead or rotting animals. I get where your flies could have come from. You need to check it all out.
Asbestos.
And soil samples. Asbestos, yes. Lead
all
paint.
of this stuff.
A lot of that still could have been lead paint in there.
Yeah.
there was never any sort of scientific work done in this home. Period.
Not that I was able to find.
A scraping off the blinds.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if that was truly something that the priest or Granny and Mama had put on there to anoint and protect,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, they might have said, oh, they came back and it's dripping the next day. Well, how do you know Grandma didn't go back in there behind them and go, oh gosh, somebody wiped this off? So yeah, you're gonna see it again. If all it is olive oil, then guess what? No ectoplasm here. You jump to that conclusion.
It's not the
Stop
Dookie Demons. It's not the Dookie Demons.
Stop it. Yes. Get a logical, and again, I'm a skeptical believer. I want to believe it's out there. I want to believe all this, but I am not going to jump to demon first thing ever, because 99.9% of the time it's not.
It's not.
No.
Most
so
time
rare.
that it is not. Yep.
And
it is very rare.
Father Maginot and Captain Austin were more interested in being characters in the story than they were actually solving what was happening.
I think that's y'all. The comments have killed me tonight. Somebody just put it's aliens.
I agree.
Y'all have been on it with the comments, and I have enjoyed it all night long. My final opinion on this is that I hate to be the one that says that this isn't what it is, but that's kind of my opinion, because this is one of the rarity ones, because now it's Bigfoot, guys. You know, we take, when people approach us about a residential haunting or something like that, they're looking for advice, they're looking for help, they're trying to figure things out. We take them at their word initially, you know, because until we can delve further into it, whether it is actually paranormal or perceived paranormal, what they are experiencing to them is real.
That's right.
Absolutely.
So we take them at their word for what they are experiencing. And that's why I have difficulty in giving a final thought on this case, because it's not that I don't want to believe them. I want to believe them, but I don't know whether to believe them in the fact that this was an actual haunting and potential demonic haunting, or if this was a perceived haunting that they fed into the hysteria of, along with everybody else who failed them on this. So it's kind of hard to come to a complete conclusion. I think in my mind, I'm going to go with that there was probably paranormal activity happening in the house, but I do not believe that it reached the level of demonic haunting, just based on reading into the process that people took to get to where they got to.
Or the lack thereof.
I was going to say, there was not enough of an investigation for me to logically read and make that same conclusion and follow that same path. I could not get there with what I was able to read and able to find in documents and stuff like that. But anyways, what are y'all's thoughts? Because they're still going on in the comments of what all of our viewers think it is. Aliens, Bigfoot, I believe ET over demon, honestly. An Irish cow.
An Irish standing cow.
South Carolina standing cows.
Calm down. Plate tectonics. It's the lizard men.
I love our commenters.
I mean, I'm kind of along the same lines as you, Blake. I think maybe they were experiencing something. I don't think it was to the level of a demonic haunting like it was suggested. But once again, with Father Maginot and Captain Austin coming in with their preconceived notions about what was going on and leading the family down that path even further and feeding into everything, I think the waters are too muddy to come up with a final definitive yes or no.
And that's what sucks too, because the only thing that stands out in my mind is that wall walking incident that I seriously cannot easily explain away. You know, I can't. So
see, all those saying unexplained, you don't know what you can't pick a side, Priscilla. I mean, which one is it?
No, my belief is that it was a haunting. I do not believe that it was at the level that it was. I do believe that there was paranormal activity going on in the house. That's just some of the things that they were saying and some of the things that I were reading into. That's what I'm going with. I do not believe that it reached the level of a demonic haunting.
Okay. Brian, you think?
Did not reach the level of demonic haunting. The waters are muddied. I think they experienced something, or they believe they experienced something. What it is, I can't say.
Okay.
You?
Yeah, I was gonna say you can't just remain silent there.
The only thing I think that has any credibility at all, because I do not think this is a demonic haunting. I'm not even sure it's a haunting. I think that it is probably something children love to please. And if this makes mama happy and makes mama buy us cookies and ice cream and popsicles and mama's happy, we're gonna do it. I think that in the house that it was probably, and again, I am never the first one to blame mama. I'm really not. I think that they were trying to please mama. And if mama seemed to feel better after she prayed over us and it seemed to work and now mama's happy, I can see the kids maybe being rainbow. Oh, you have a demon, you have a devil, and you come here and let me pray it away. Well, okay, well, now they got to stand still, which in effect calms the child. You make a child stand still, that they're going to calm down a little bit. And then suddenly they're acting right again. Oh, look, the praying worked. Now mama's happy. Now, the only thing I cannot explain is the wall walking. I do think that there is potentially an explanation for it. Don't know what that is. I'm not even going to try to venture a guess. I can't see how the physics of it works. I can't explain that. But I don't think there was anything haunting in that house. And how convenient that it's been torn down so that no one else can go and find out.
It has been. Yep. Completely
interesting.
Demolished. Yeah.
Interesting that after the great big wonderful TV show, definitely a porterhouse. Well, nobody else gets to go in there, tear it down. No way to prove your findings. No one to validate your facts.
Yeah,
I don't like that. So I'm going to go on the side that there is nothing haunted about that house. I think that this might have been a case of mama and grandma in their deep, intense spiritual beliefs and potentially believing in, and I don't know if they believed in the laying of hands. Some people do, and that's fine. Go with it. I think that can be taken to the extreme. And I think there was some form of mental illness in there. And I think that the lone incident that cannot be explained is the wall walking. Not haunted.
You know, I have heard ever since they went and moved to Indianapolis, the sale of olive oil has gone down in that area.
So, I just find it interesting that nothing else has happened and nothing was reported.
I can't go with the fact that I can't get on board with there was mental illness in the house because there was too many psyche evals done on all the children and LaToya Ammons herself that noted nothing.
Yeah.
There have been many people that were misdiagnosed, though.
Oh no, I'm not going to deny that. Yeah, I mean, definitely not going to deny that.
The most frustrating part about this case is that you have all these, you have these people who are working with these children in an official capacity who witnessed the wall walking incident. And now that is even brought into question because of everything else involved with this case.
Oh, and also the fact that none of them have gone on record, correct? It's just reported that they saw this, right?
Yeah, not that I have found.
So again, this is a secondhand knowledge. There's not a nurse who said, I was in that room. My name is, whatever. And I witnessed it. There is not one official. And that is the only thing. We are still taking the word of the mother we're taking the word of the grandmother, actually, that this happened, because I can say all day long, 20 people witnessed this. Bring me one to put their name on a document to tell me that. And so if that occurred, that's the thing I can't explain, but I'm not even sure if that occurred.
Well, do you think, though, that maybe the hospital and the Department of Children's Services told them not to go on the record and give a name and talk about what they've seen?
Okay, as well as I do, the more people that are involved, the less likely a secret is to stay a secret. Mm-hmm. I would have thought that one of them would have come out, especially when there was $65 million involved, to go, hey, you know what? I was in that room. Do you want my story? I'll sell it to you. I can give you firsthand account. I was in that room. Yeah. I just don't know why somebody didn't step up and go, listen, this family's being attacked. They're, and I can vouch for them. I'll put my name on a piece of paper. Because if I'd have seen that, I go, listen, I will tell you what I saw. And none have. Especially when it involves a child.
Very true.
They don't know. Yeah, and I can't even say that actually happened. Again, we're going on grandma's word on this.
Somebody's there to come forward for a Klondike bar. Me too.
Man, our people are so great. That's hilarious.
That's fucking funny. Yeah, so we got 2 for something going on in the house, 1 for absolutely nothing going on in the house.
Nothing.
And again, we do not fully agree. on a
Nothing
topic.
can be validated at all. Nothing can you
I will give it. I'll
suppose
give
all
it
day
to you.
long, but
I'll
at the
give
end
it
of
to
the day,
you.
Nothing can be
Yeah,
validated.
no.
I will
about
give you
one
that.
Person on a record.
I will absolutely give you that. I mean, I'm right there with you. I just don't know. It's more of a feeling for me that just something about it that I do think that something was going on in the house.
Even if something wasn't going on, I believe that they believed something was going on in the house.
Well, then that's nothing going on in the house,
being affected
No,
by
no, I
some kind of
said-
chemical leak or something like that, or asbestos or lead paint.
It's
or something.
Mothman. It's Mothman.
It is
When
Mothman. Good.
all its
Somebody
spells
finally figured it out. Well, with that, why don't you
answer to
tell them everything
Mothman.
they need to know, Blake?
Sounds good. All right, it's time for our announcements and our shout outs real quick. First off, if you'd like to see us speaking in person, then July 14th through 16th, you can catch us in Kansas City, Missouri, speaking at MetaCon.
Coming up quick.
Coming up very quick. I think we're just about 2.5 weeks.
Whew.
They'll have a great lineup of paranormal, metaphysical speakers, including us, John Zaffis, Andrea Perrin, to name a few, as well as 40 plus vendors and over 30,000 square feet of shopping, fun, and healing. So it's going to be a very fun 3-day weekend and event. Second, our tickets that we had on sale are officially sold out. So we actually have nothing on sale right now, but we are putting other locations on the calendar for public events. So make sure that you stay tuned and make sure to follow our Eventbrite page so you can get notified when those tickets do go on sale for those events, because we literally have people watching like hawks the moment we
Our
post
peeps
something
don't
up.
play.
They're going to buy. So we're going to post up our Linktree page to our Facebook page tomorrow, so you'll have to go there to find it. This will have all the links included in one stop place, including all of our social channels. So make sure you're following us across all those to stay up to date on all the exclusive content we have coming this year. We utilize different channels to promote different content. So if you're only getting on one channel, you're only getting a fraction of the content available. Our Linktree will also take you to our public events, that Eventbrite page, and our Patreon page. And our Patreon is just $5 a month. And with that, you instantly unlock well over 100 additional Patreon exclusive videos. And that's continuing to grow every single week. That includes That includes our pre and post broadcast, Paracon speaking events, exclusive evidence, past videos we tried and gave up on, and all the up-to-date information on dates, times, and locations on where we will be or what we'll be doing. We reveal almost everything on our Patreon. And you get to see us act like even more idiots. So you get to hear juicy personal details.
Some real
and all that
arguments.
Stuff. Yeah, go to Patreon. also make sure to leave us a review as well wherever you can. The more you review us, the more we are pushed out to reach even more people, which in turn will allow us to bring you more and more content as we grow. And as always, any questions, comments, or stories you'd like to share with us, those we can submit. Words are hard. Those can be submitted to us at the evppod@gmail.com. That's THEEVPPOD@gmail.com.
Like, share, and subscribe. And by the way, I'd like to challenge everybody who watches this on Facebook to go and subscribe on YouTube.
Absolutely.
Because there are some new things up on the YouTube page. I'm going to challenge everybody on Facebook. Go ahead and go and just subscribe on YouTube. It's really easy. Hit that little button. I figured out how to do it. It's a little bell.
If Shelly can do it,
if I can do it,
so can you.
So because if you want to know what's coming up, everything for July is posted of what we're going to see and what date you can see it. So go like, share, and subscribe.
Go see what we're going to be doing in the month of July. Well, guys, thank y'all so much for tuning in for another weekly episode of Everything Vaguely Paranormal. My name is Blake Smith, and as always, my partners in the paranormal, Miss Shelley Pruitt, Mr. Ryan Roberts, and of course, we cannot forget our wonderful producer, Brittany, in the green room, pressing all the buttons and making us look fabulous for y'all and keeping those comments flowing. We thank y'all for joining us, and as always, we will see you next Tuesday. Good night, y'all.
Bye, guys.